Okay, welcome to today's session. Today we're going to be talking over the project initiation phase. So, in project management, the initiation phase is in the predictive environment, especially, is one of the most foundational topics in the project management world, and one that PMI places enormous emphasis on for the PMP and the CAPM exams. So, my name is Jim Brock, and I am your instructor here for this particular session. And I'm also the owner of BMT Consulting, which is a disabled veteran owned company dedicated to delivering world class project management training. Let's go ahead and jump right in here. Here's what we'll be covering today. So, we're going to start by grounding ourselves in the big picture, the full project lifecycle, so everyone understands where initiation fits. Then we'll zoom into initiation itself, what it is, why it matters, and what happens before a project even officially begins. The heart of today's session is the project charter. We'll define it, we'll break it down, every component of it, and we'll walk through a step-by-step process for creating one. We'll close with a look at the key stakeholders that you're going to engage during initiation, and we'll have a final takeaway to tie it all together. The training is designed around PMI's mindset, meaning we're going to focus how PMI expects you to think, not just what you need to memorize. The initiation phase is process group 1 in the PMBOK guide. And the two key processes here are develop project charter and identify stakeholders. Both are in the integration and stakeholder management knowledge areas, respectively. Whether you're preparing for a certification exam, leading a project for the first time, or looking to sharpen your fundamentals, today's content's going to directly apply to you. In a predictive or waterfall environment, every project follows 5 sequential phases: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closing. PMI calls this the project management process groups. Phase 1 is where everything begins. Before any work is done, before any planning happens, before a single resource is assigned, the project must be formally initiated. Here's what many new project managers get wrong. They jump straight into planning or even execution without properly completing initiation. This leads to scope confusion, unauthorized projects, and stakeholder misalignment, all of which are among top causes of project failure. Monitoring and controlling is not a discrete sequential phase. It actually runs in parallel across all the other phases. PMI represents it as overlapping. So you want to keep this in mind when you are dealing with these process groups. You do sequentially go through here, but in monitoring and controlling, you do bounce back to execution, planning, and sometimes you may bounce all the way back to initiation based on the change that you're dealing with at that particular time. The initiation phase is the first phase of the project lifecycle, and its primary purpose is to formally define and authorize the project before any significant resources are committed. The key word is formally. This is an official organizational decision, not an informational conversation. 4 things happen during initiation. The project receives formal authorization from the sponsor. Without this, the project does not legally exist within the organization. Number 2, the project's scope, purpose, and objectives are defined at a very high level, not in detail. That comes in planning. Stakeholders are identified, so we figure out who has a stake in the project before we start making decisions. And then number 4, 2 key deliverables that are produced in the initiation phase are the project charter and your stakeholder register. So here's a PMI mindset reminder for you. Just keep this in mind. No project charter equals no project. A PM who starts work without a signed charter has no authority and has no protection. So let's talk about why getting initiation right is so critical. According to PMI's Pulse of the Profession report, poorly defined requirements and poor project initiation are among the top drivers of project failures. Globally, organizations waste billions of dollars every year on projects that were set up to fail from day one. So let's talk about the 6 reasons why this is important. Okay. The first thing is you have to have a shared understanding. You need to eliminate, it eliminates the, but I thought we were doing X conversation that derails your project. Clear objectives have to be defined. If you can measure success before you start, you'll never know if you've achieved it. If you can't measure success before you start, excuse me, you'll never know if you've achieved it. Sponsor authorization, that's where it gives you, the PM, the legal standing and the organizational backing to actually execute the project. Risk awareness, this is what you, catching risks in the initiation phase is 10 times cheaper than discovering them in the execution phase or even later on. Stakeholder engagements, keep this in mind. Stakeholders ignored early become obstacles to you later. You need to know who all your stakeholders are, both in regards to the project that will affect the project in a positive light, and even those ones that will affect the project negatively, or the project will affect them negatively. You got to take all of those people into account. Scope foundation, this is where we set our boundaries in initiation, so that helps us prevent scope creep throughout the rest of the project. Here's a PMI quote for you guys to keep in mind as well. Failing to initiate properly is planning to fail. So there's pre-work, right? Before we can even create a project charter, the organization must do some pre-project homework. This work answers the fundamental question, should we even do this project? So the business case is the primary tool for answering that question. It's a formal document that does a couple of things. It justifies why the project should be done, and that it analyzes cost benefits, return on investment, and strategic alignment. It's prepared by the business, or by the sponsor and the business unit, not the project manager, and it must be approved by senior leadership before initiation can even officially begin. Now, the statement of work is the companion document that describes the what will be done. In external projects, like when you hire a vendor, the statement of work becomes part of the contract. Internally, it feeds directly into the project charter. Think of it this way. The business case answers the why, the statement of work answers the what, and the project charter answers who has authority and how do we proceed. Okay? Now, the project charter is without question the most important output of the initiation phase. PMI defines it as a document that formally authorizes the existence of a project and provides the project manager with the authority to apply organizational resources to project activities. So let's go ahead and break that down. There's 5 factors that you kind of need to know. Okay. First off, the project charter is issued by the sponsor, never the project manager. The PM is going to help draft it, but it is always signed by someone with organizational authority. Next, it authorizes the PM. The charter gives the project manager the power to make decisions, acquire resources, and direct team members. Without it, the PM has no formal authority. Next, high-level scope only, right? So we're only going to identify those high-level requirements. Things like contain detailed schedules, detailed budgets, or work breakdown structures. Those are not high-level scope only items, right? Those are things that come in the planning phase. And then you have timing. The charter is created during the initiation phase before planning even begins. This sequence is non-negotiable in regards to PMI. PMI says you have to do initiation first. So the golden rule as far as PMI is concerned, again, no charter equals no project. PMI will never endorse starting a project without a signed charter. This will appear on the exam. You're going to see it. So please keep that in mind. Okay. Now there's key components of the project charter, and this slide's going to walk us through all of those. So let's go through each component of a well-formed project charter. So this is a good example of what you should see in one. These nine elements are what PMI expects to see in a project charter. So knowing them cold will serve you pretty well on the exam and on your job. So item number one is the project purpose. That's the why. It's a one or two sentences that explain the business need or the opportunity that this project is going to address. Item number two is measurable objectives. This is where we're talking about SMART goals. SMART goals being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. These become your success criteria. Next, we discuss high-level requirements. These are the broad conditions the final deliverable must meet, not a detailed requirement list. Details, again, come in the planning phase. Item number four are your high-level risks. These are major threats or opportunities that are identified at this early stage. You can't wait until planning to think about risks. You're going to be dealing with risk all the way through the entire project. So defining as many high-level risks from the get-go is always going to be a good idea for you to do. Next, item number five is your summary milestone schedule. Okay, so these are key dates only, things like project kickoff, major phase gates, and target delivery. This is not going to be like a detailed Gantt chart or anything like that. It's just all high-level dates. Then we're also in item number six, we're going to take a look at your pre-approved budget. And really what you're looking at is a rough order of magnitude, or a ROM. And that's going to be typically a plus or minus 50% accurate of what the whole cost of the project is going to be. The precision comes later when you're in planning and you start doing those full-fledged estimates, so you can flesh out what that actual cost is going to be based off the schedule that you will put together. Item number seven is going to be your stakeholder list. And again, this is that high-level roster of key individuals and groups. This feeds into the stakeholder register that you're going to create and created in the identify stakeholder process. Okay. Item number eight is your PM assignment and authority levels. Who is the PM? What decisions can they make independently? This is critical. The authority levels that come with that are high, medium, and low, meaning your project manager has high authority, medium authority, or a low authority. And a lot of times that's going to depend depending on which type of organization you're working in, whether it's a functional organization or a matrixed organization or a projectized organization. Okay. And nine, which is the key item or the key component of the project charter. Without item number nine, items 1 through 8 don't mean anything. Okay. So that's your sponsor signature. This is the official sign off that makes it all legal and binding. Without this signature, this document's just a draft and you can't really start anything. Okay. Now, these are the steps to create your project charter. Okay. So now we know what goes in a charter. We're going to talk about how to actually create it. So this is a 7-step process that aligns with PMI's develop project charter task from the PMBOK guide. So step one, we're going to review the business case before we write a single word. Understanding the strategic justification is extremely important. So we're going to ask, what problem are we solving? What opportunity are we capturing? Why is this project worth the investment? Step two is gather inputs. So PMI identifies specific inputs to this process. So you're going to need the statement of work, which the PM is going to write, and any existing agreements or contracts, any enterprise environmental factors or EEFs, things like organizational culture and market conditions and organizational process assets, which are things like your templates and historical data, lesson learns, all those types of things. That's the gather inputs, step two. Step three is to identify those stakeholders. So you're going to work with the sponsor to build a preliminary stakeholder list. Who will be affected? Who has influence over the project? This feeds the identify stakeholders process that runs in parallel. Okay. So you are going to be identify those stakeholders while you're working on the project charter. Step four is define scope and objective. What we need to do is capture the high-level scope boundaries and write those SMART objectives. While we're doing that, you're going to do two specific things here. You're specifically going to write what is in scope and what's explicitly out of scope, right? So you have to define both what is in the project and what is not in the project. All right. That leads me to step number 5. That's outline risks and budget. Here you're going to document the major risks that you can identify at that stage, and you're going to establish that pre-approved budget range, which again, remember, is going to be a ROM, a rough order of magnitude, and that's going to be plus or minus 50% of what the actual cost is going to be. All right. And then step 6, that's draft the charter document. So you're going to compile everything into your organizational template for a project charter. You're going to make sure that you write everything clearly, and every section should be understandable to someone who wasn't in the room. So anybody that's on that team should be able to walk up to the project charter and go and look at it and go, okay, I got an idea what we're doing here now. Okay. And then finally is step 7. And this is the crucial one. You have to review with the sponsor and get that sign off. So you're going to present the draft to the sponsor for review and for approval. This final step is what converts the document from a draft to an official project authorization. Okay. Next, here's an example template of what a project charter should look like. So you got to notice, I want you to notice a few things. First, the format is simple. It's just a 2-column table. Left column is the field name and right column is where you fill in the content. So every field maps directly to one of the 9 components that we just talked about. The sponsor signature row at the bottom is non-negotiable. This is the line that makes everything official. So let me point out 2 fields that students often get confused about. One is milestones versus schedule. The charter lists key milestones only, things like kickoff date, major decision points, and target go live dates, right? A full project schedule is a planning deliverable, not an initiation deliverable. Also, your pre-approved budget, that's that plus or minus 50% accuracy note. That's really important, right? So that's that your accuracy of how much you think this project is going to cost is going to be plus or minus 50% of what it's actually going to be. At this stage, the organization is committed to a range, not that precise number. Precision comes after that detailed planning, and after all, you do all those definite estimates, okay? All right, let's move on to the next slide. Key stakeholders in initiation. So initiation isn't just about paperwork. It's about people. The second major process in initiation is identify stakeholders, and PMI is very clear here. The earlier you identify stakeholders, the better your chance of project success. So let's talk about the 5 key roles that are definitely going to be key stakeholders here, okay? Number 1 is the project sponsor. This is the most important stakeholder during initiation. The sponsor owns the business case. They provide organizational authority and they sign the charter. So if you have issues escalate during the project, you go to the sponsor first. The sponsor does not manage the day-to-day project. That's your job as the PM. Next is the project manager. During initiation, your job is to facilitate the entire process, gather information, draft the charter, help identify those stakeholders. The PM does not yet have authority until the charter is actually signed. So you can't be the one making the decisions on this, right? So all you're going to do is assist your sponsor in this case to get all this stuff done. Next, you have customers and end users. These are the people who will actually use the final deliverable. So getting their input during initiation ensures that the project's purpose aligns with what the actual need is of the project, not just the perceived needs. Then you have functional managers. These guys control the resources, people, and equipment that you're going to have to need to have a relationship with. So you need to know who they are and how to deal with them. Their early buy-in is going to be critical for resource availability throughout your project. So you definitely want to build a really good relationship with those functional managers. And then you also have the PMO office if it's applicable. So if your organization has a PMO office, that's going to provide guidance, templates, and standards. In some organizations, the PMO must approve the charter before the sponsor actually signs it. So it depends on the type of PMO office your organization has. So a key PMI principle here is stakeholders identified late are stakeholders who will resist late. All right, engage early and engage often. That's the key here. So let's wrap up. So let's close with a moment of reflection. Today we covered a lot of ground. The full project life cycle, the purpose of the initiation, the business case, the project charter from definition to creation, and the key stakeholders that will be involved. Let me leave you with four key takeaways. Things I want you to remember whether you're sitting in an exam or walking into a project kickoff meeting. Number one, initiation is the most critical phase. Every mistake made here compounds. A weak charter leads to scope creep. Missed stakeholders become obstacles. Undefined objectives lead to disputes at closure. And getting initiation right saves you time, money, and headaches downstream. Item number two, the project charter formally authorized the project and the PM's authority. This is not bureaucratic paperwork. It is your license to operate. Item number three, never skip stakeholder identification. Stakeholders ignored during initiation find a way to make themselves known later, and usually that's going to be at the worst possible moment. And it's not going to be to help you. It's going to be to block you. So please make sure you identify your stakeholders from the get-go. And number four, which is the PMI mindset. In everything you do as a project manager, remember to manage the work structure and lead the people within it. Both matter. Neither is sufficient alone. The quote on this slide is one I want you to internalize. The initiation phase sets the stage for every decision that follows. Everything in planning, executing, and beyond builds on what you do today in initiation. All right. That's all we have. And thank you all very much. I hope you got something out of today's topic. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Have a good day.